makes a great classical saxophone mouthpiece? Today we're going to talk about that, and I've got 3 recommendations of mouthpieces I think you will love. So grab your tuxedo or concert black. Let's talk classical saxophone. Hi, and welcome to the Saxophone Academy. I'm Dr. Wally Wallace, and if you're interested in saxophone masterclasses and product reviews, please do consider subscribing and hit the like button, because I like all 3 of these mouthpieces we're going to look at today. Now, these are not critical reviews, these are recommendations. I would happily perform on any 3 of these mouthpieces, so if you're looking to upgrade your current classical or concert band mouthpiece, or if you're looking to start exploring classical saxophone, which is a fun thing to do, we'll talk about it in a later video coming up with some big announcements, all 3 of these are fantastic options, slightly different, that we'll talk about going forward. Now, what makes a classical mouthpiece a classical mouthpiece? In general, and we're speaking in generalities here, classical mouthpieces have a smaller tip opening, usually a medium round chamber, and no baffle. Now, that is often paired with a firmer or harder reed, given the smaller tip opening, and that allows for a couple of things: a strong fundamental, some attenuation of the higher partials, largely due to the thicker tip on the filed or classical style reeds, and also a more gentle articulation, less pop at the front end, and very easy to taper in soft dynamics. Now, all 3 of these mouthpieces do these things very well. You'll also notice I sound nearly identical on all 3, so you don't need to stress out about choosing the right one or making a huge mistake. All 3 will serve you very well, but they do feel slightly different. Though I sound nearly identical on all 3, what it takes for me to achieve my sound concept feels slightly different on each one, and that's what we're exploring today. So let's dive in, first talking about the Backun TM Vocalise. Tip opening, 1.53 millimeters. Medium round chamber, dark and subtle, good looks. Now, Backun is a Canadian company that's actually well known for their clarinets, clarinet barrels, and clarinet mouthpieces. The TM line, the TM Vocalise, the TM stands for Timothy McAllister, the world-renowned concert saxophonist who helped design this in conjunction with mouthpiece guru Richard Hawkins, who is a clarinetist. Well, they came up with this, and I interviewed Tim McAllister on the Saxophone Academy podcast, and some of the things that were very important to him were power and flexibility, given his career as a saxophone soloist, playing with major orchestras, and he was very particular about having a little bit heftier tip and side rails, more to work with, more akin to what a great classical clarinet mouthpiece would have. This is a very comfortable mouthpiece to play. It has a lot of power. It is the most flexible of the mouthpieces we're looking at today, but still very comfortable. Cooperative resistance, just enough to keep it consistent and easy to play at softer dynamics, but gives you enough to really lean in at the more powerful dynamics, always feeling very controlled, very comfortable in the hands of an experienced player. Tone, my favorite of the bunch. As a matter of fact, my favorite classical mouthpiece I've ever played. It feels very warm and sweet and open without sounding bright or getting away from you. It has a very comfortable resistance in the high end, cooperative resistance, not a stuffy resistance, that lets you really sing, and as you push and lean into it, it never feels like it gets away from you or gets overly bright. It almost kind of blossoms. Very sweet, lovely sound. it's got it in spades. Very comfortable to play at softer and stronger dynamics. I really like the well-balanced resistance you feel when you lean into it. It feels like the sound kind of stays centered, a little bit bigger and warmer as you get louder, but never becomes strident or gets away from you. Great for solo or concerto work, but also certainly easy enough to play in chamber settings or concert band settings. That said, the power available in this does come with some responsibility. A beginner player could get themselves into trouble with not being able to control it. Imagine like a high-performance sports car. If you mash the gas, you can end up in a ditch. But the hands of an experienced or intermediate player, a lot of beauty can be found in this mouthpiece. The Concept by Selmer Paris. 1.52mm tip opening, medium round chamber, and curves in nearly all the right places. I say nearly all the right places because this is curvy. It's an innovative design, the shape, the aesthetics, which I do appreciate. With one asterisk. The beak, which is a super gradual slope up to the top of the mouthpiece here, creates a little gap with the 2-screw ligature. It hangs over slightly. There's a slight little gap with the ligature. Doesn't affect playability, doesn't affect the seal of the reed, but it still drives me insane. Now, this is slightly more resistant than the other mouthpieces we're looking at today, but not in a bad way. It's very comfortable. I feel like I can lean into the airstream, get very comfortable, soft and strong dynamics across the register. Very easy to play. Tone quality is full and robust, not as flexible as the Backun, but still plenty of colors to pull from this, and I liked especially the high end. Again, a comfortable, cooperative resistance. Feel the high notes sing and have a lovely mellow tone up there. In all, it's just a great mouthpiece. It's kind of a Buddha mouthpiece. It's the middle of the road. It does everything you could possibly want. Solo work, chamber work. It's comfortable. Great response on all ends. It doesn't have quite the excitement or the sweetness of tone, at least the sensation to the player as the Backun, and it doesn't have quite the ease in the low end that we'll talk about with the Vandoren, but it's just a great workhorse mouthpiece that, really, there's nothing wrong with it. If there's something wrong with playing this, it's likely user error. The Vandoren AL3. 1.52mm tip opening, medium round chamber. It's a comfortable ride. Easy would be the word I would use to describe this mouthpiece. When I first tried it after years of playing other classical mouthpieces, I almost felt like I was cheating a little bit. Put a little bit of air through and you get immediately a lovely tone quality. It's very easy to play. Soft dynamics, has plenty of dynamic range on the other end. Playing the low end, high end, altissimo, it does everything very easy. Now, it's not quite as powerful or flexible as the other mouthpieces that we've talked about today, but it's just an incredibly comfortable playing experience that almost has kind of a limiter on it. So beginning players, kind of keeps them from getting into too much trouble, but very easy to control, very comfortable from top to bottom. The tone quality is light and lovely and clear. I've always said the Vandoren AL3 has the best low-end response and clarity of any mouthpiece I've ever played, but there's a slight trade-off. The well-vented notes on the saxophone, the most open notes, the middle range, middle B, middle C, C sharp, and the palm keys feel a little bit thinner, than the Backun or the Selmer Soloist or the older S80, S90 Selmer mouthpieces. You feel like it can kind of almost get away from you at times. It takes a little bit more work to get the tone quality that I prefer in those notes. It's subtle, but it's there. Power, it's there, but you got to work for it. Now, if you're doing chamber settings, playing in a concert band, or even a saxophone quartet, this will have all the power you will ever need. And for most soloists, all the power you will ever need. But one slight caveat. When I was in the Army band, I would occasionally play concertos with high school bands or community bands that can be quite loud. This did not quite have the carrying power I would have liked in those situations. For that, I did prefer the older Selmer styles where I could have a little bit more center and focus, kind of cut through the ensemble. But that's a rare occasion. Most people never have the pleasure and terror of doing that. So for most people, this is going to have all the power you can ever need. Unless you're Tim McAllister and playing with San Francisco or some other giant name orchestra, all the power you will need, but you have to work for it to get the volume that you do on the other two that we've reviewed. In summary, all three are fantastic mouthpieces, and the differences I've talked about, they are subtle. A lot of players starting their journey aren't going to notice these differences. Whichever you pick, none of them is going to hold you back. None of them are going to cause problems, especially if you go practice.